Okay, I did one of these for oscillators and ring mod, so I thought I should do one for the rest of the synth, so filters, VCAs, and envelopes. We're going to start with the filter. The filter shapes your sound. The three main kinds are low pass, high pass, and band pass. So let's say instead of sound, we're dealing with cats, and we have cats of different weights. So we only want to let the fat cats through. We would use a low pass filter. If we only want the skinny cats, you use a high pass filter. If we want a specific weight of cat, we can use a band pass filter. So it can be low or high and thin. So they get a little more animated if you add an LFO or envelope. We'll add some LFO. So that's the band pass filter. Low pass. You can hear it has a lot more bass. And high pass. So generally, if you want a round, lower sound, you use a low pass. If you want a high, sizzly sound, you use a high pass. If you want a very specific thin sound, you can use a band pass. I'll just show these with noise. So low pass, and then with resonance. High pass with resonance, and band pass, and with resonance. So to explain resonance, it puts a little peak on the sound, and you can move it around then with the cutoff. Some filters, when you crank the resonance all the way up, it'll start to self-oscillate and make its own tone, which is pretty useful. This one doesn't do that normally. But if you take one of the outputs of your synth and feed it back in to an external input, if it has it, you can do some feedback things that can give you resonance with a non-resonant filter, or non-self-oscillating. So we'll switch to external. On low pass, the feedback just gives you some extra growl. Without. So feedback is very useful. Moving on to VCAs, they're pretty simple. They just let a signal through, and then you can control how much of it gets through with a envelope or an LFO, or just by itself. Like these ones have an initial level. So if I turn it up, the synth just drones. if we turn up the LFO mod, we get a tremolo effect. If you crank the speed of your LFO, if it goes really fast to the VCA, you can get some kind of distorted effects. It's a little subtle. There we go. On modular synths, you will have VCAs all over the place, hopefully to let your modulation through and do various things, as well as just to control your sound levels. So envelopes are a little weird. They usually have 4 stages: attack, decay, sustain, and release. And attack, decay, and release are measured in time, and sustain is just a level. So it's a little confusing that sustain is in the middle, but when you see the shape, the overall flow of the sound, the shape of the envelope starts to make sense. So if we send the envelope to the filter and we turn the sustain down, it's sort of the same as going like this. And the sustain, as long as you hold a key, it'll stay at this level. So how long it takes to get to this level is determined by these two. So if we have the attack all the way up, it fades in. Some envelopes have a switch that affects their time. This one, it can go longer. So sometimes you want, depending how you're dialing it in, you want it on a short or fast setting. Decay, if we have the sustain down, decay will give us like a pluck sound. You usually have 2 envelopes, so you kind of want to measure or like get their settings similar depending what you're doing. Like release is the tail of the sound, how long it takes to fade out. So if we have the filter one up, we don't hear anything, but if we have the release on the envelope, the VCA envelope up as well, then we'll hear it fade out. You can hear it trail down. So if you want it to fade in and then fade out, you have your attack up and your release up. If you want it to just behave straight, like plain, note on, note off, you have your sustains up and everything else down. So I'm just going to play around a little bit with this second filter and oscillator, and we'll see if we can get an interesting sound or two. So that's just a really fast LFO affecting the filters. And you can get some really crazy sounds that way. So that should get you started.